Have you ever considered that you might be choosing the version of the story that makes you the most upset? I have been thinking on this and expanding on this for years. One time when I was in an argument with my partner, I felt like I was 100% right. 100%. He was 100% wrong. There was nothing to discuss other than him changing his response, his words, his tone. I couldn't see myself doing anything wrong in that argument. And I called a friend, which is something that I really don't often do. I really like to handle things myself before I reach out to anyone else and get anyone else's opinions. But I felt so stuck. I was like, I I need someone. I feel like I'm going crazy. I need to talk to someone who gets it. And this friend got it. But when I called her that day, she said, "Why are you choosing this?" She threw my words back at me, and she ended up laughing because it's typically always at that point in time the other way around. She would call me and she laughed and said, "It sucks on that side, doesn't it? It's super fun over here being you, though." And it broke my spell. It broke where I was in my thoughts. And at first, I felt like genuinely like I was not choosing this. I did not want to be fighting. I could not be more crystal clear about that. But I felt like there was no way to not be fighting because he was being the worst, right? And how could I change him? And she just said, "But you're choosing to be angry at him. You're choosing to be triggered by this." In that moment where you have that wave of truth that washes over and you can't ignore that this is real, that there's really something here that you're missing. And I felt that. So I started looking. What was I missing? And then I started noticing that every time we would argue from that point on, I would hear her voice saying, "Why are you choosing this?" And I would stop and I would take a breath and I would think about what I actually wanted to choose, how I could change my responses, not him, me. How could I change it and find a peaceful path so that his energy was not negatively impacting me, so that I could see this entire thing differently? And we started getting pretty good at it. But there's one area that we have never been able to consistently break through. And that is when he is driving and I am in the passenger seat and another driver on the road cuts him off or just starts driving a little erratically or in an unsafe nature, or they're not really following the rules of the road, things like that. And I get it. I get why it upsets him. But the part that I was always trying to get him to understand that I could not seem to break through was that when he runs with this story that that driver is just a POS, selfish a-hole that does not care about any of us on the road, we are all in danger, his energy would get terrible in our car. And no matter what story we told ourselves, it didn't change anything because the drivers still just went on their way. They were just driving. It's not like we pulled over and we all had a powwow and figured out if my scenario or his scenario is right. I'm over here saying, what if he just got a really bad phone call and he's rushing somewhere? What if he's late for work because all of these things went wrong this morning? I'm trying to ask him, haven't you ever been in a situation where you drove a little bit like, oh my God, that was embarrassing. That was the wrong thing to do. Or you just weren't paying attention and accidentally did something? Or haven't you ever just not been perfect on the road? But it always just led back to that's not what's happening here. I'm wrong. He's right. Statistically, logically, whatever it is, he's right. And he has all the reason in the world to be upset with that driver. And a lot of times I just said, whatever, because I was over it. I didn't want to talk about it anymore. I didn't feel good being in the car anymore. Our adventure was not adventuring anymore. It felt like everything sucked. It was like, what's even the point of this? This isn't even fun. Like, I'd rather just go home now. And that shot the whole mood. But I realized the last time this happened to us that that was the part that was connecting. It was bringing up that pattern in my brain of what my friend said to me about, why are you choosing this? I had never asked him why he chooses the story that he knows is going to upset him the most. So we were driving and we saw a lane closed ahead. And of course, there's an erratic driver who jumps out of line and cuts everybody and pops back over. Is there a high probability that that person is just impatient, didn't want to wait in line, and decided to cut everybody off? Sure. Just as likely that there's something else going on that we don't know about. But it does not matter. The story does not matter. Not in the way we think. It doesn't matter because it doesn't mean that we are excusing bad behavior. It doesn't mean that we are out here saying there's no way that any of these things could be true. We're saying it happened. We have no control over it, and nothing is going to change for us and that driver if we choose a story that frustrates us or a story that makes us feel empathetic. The only thing that's going to change is the energy in our car. But why are we picking the energy that's going to make our car not great, not fun, not adventurous, not loving, not connective? It's going to pull us apart. It's going to crap all over our mood, our energy. Why are we giving that car so much power? And it's not just the other driver. If we do this there, we do this all over our lives. When I first stopped looking at him when we were arguing and I started looking at my thoughts, looking at my reactions, looking at how my emotions were taking the lead and controlling who I was in those moments, the more I could see that I didn't like what I was choosing. I didn't like the story that I was creating in these arguments. I was choosing defense. I was choosing I'm being attacked. I was choosing all of my outbursts, but I couldn't see that then. The same way that he was choosing to be angry and frustrated and annoyed and upset and hurt and all of these things by these drivers, He was assuming. Sure, we can make excuses, we can logic, we can reason, we can whatever, but it doesn't matter. It's not going to change what's happening with that driver. The only thing we're thinking about is how it's going to affect us, how it's going to affect our car, how it's going to affect our people in that car. That should prioritize how you want to feel about one random person that you're probably never going to see again. And I started seeing it all over my life where I made assumptions, where my emotions took over. And now that we had a real conversation that linked this, that linked something that we know has already changed with another piece that needs change, we see it differently. We can't unknow what we now know after that opportunity. We understand more deeply that we are in charge of the stories we choose, of the assumptions we make, of the emotions that we rack with. What story are you choosing right now? And what does that story create inside of you? That needs your attention. It needs your awareness. If you want to change anything in your life, look at the story you're building around it. There's always room for change. There's always room for growth. Where can you apply that? All right, y'all. Thank you so very, very much for being here with me, Bree, BREE, on day 91 of the Visibility Challenge. Pop on over to Convos with Bree. You can book a one-on-one with me. You can read the reflections, answer the reflection questions. You can watch more of the Visibility Day challenges. There's a little bit of everything over there. So pop on over, convoswithbree.com. And just remember, y'all, today is your day. Be here now. And remember, nothing that is meant for you will miss you.